You all have a good lunch. I managed to spill my entire paella down the front of my shirt, so that's how my day's going. But my name's Ashley. I'm your track host for today. I'm part of the Selenium Project Leadership Committee, so really happy to have you here. I'm extremely excited to introduce Anna, who will be talking about test documentation, which is one of my favorite topics. So welcome, Anna. We will have questions at the end, and of course you can find Anna around the conference to ask her anywhere and have great discussions. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Ashley, for introducing me. Thank you all for being here. So as you can see, my presentation is called Test Documentation, Why So Technical? I just don't want you to get your hopes up. I'm not an expert or a guru. I believe I'm a constant learner and a student, and that's what I always want to be. So I'll just here to share some of my experience, so don't take this too seriously. So, just a short bio for you to know me better. As you can see, I'm wearing the same dress, which it's not a coincidence. It's like my talisman. I'm not really superstitious, but why take chances? So I'm from Portugal. I have a background in communications, which means that I've always loved to write, not so much to communicate. I don't like to be a speaker, but here I am. So yeah, that's why I'm here, because I really love to write. And I'm a certified technical writer and AI technical writer. I took a course like a month ago, so I can say that now. I've been working in tech for over 11 years now. It pains me to admit that, because I wish I was younger, but it is what it is. I also am a reader. I really love to read. I read about 60 books per year. Sometimes 80, but yeah, usually it's that's my average. I really love animals. I don't like bugs. You'll understand why. And I really hate snakes. So this is the agenda for today. So I'll briefly talk to you about X-Ray as a company. Then I'll make a brief introduction. Then we'll go over some journeys about the documentation journeys for the readers and for me as a writer. Then we'll go through some challenges, not all of them because I wouldn't shut up. Then I'll provide some possible solutions for these challenges. Then I'll give you some examples. Then it's time to wrap it up, and we have some time for Q&A. So, X-Ray. Please raise your hand if you use X-Ray here on your daily tasks. That's good, I've almost left the room. So for those who don't know, X-Ray is a test management solution embedded in the Jira ecosystem, so it's part of Atlassian as well. And we have 3 product lines. As you can see, we have X-Ray, Exporter, and X-Ray exploratory app for exploratory testing activities. So X-Ray is one of the biggest test management apps in the Jira ecosystem, and we have a lot of people from Q&As to product managers to engineering managers using our products in over 10 million test cases each month, and we have more than 10 million users using our solution every day. So these are some of our customers. I believe you are familiar with some of them, for you just to have a quick idea. Now, introduction. So, what I want you to get from this talk, if this is useful for you in any way possible, is for you to understand that documentation has to be technical, yes, but it doesn't have to be that technical. It can be relatable. It can go for the why beyond the how. So you don't have to make documentation boring, technical, and lean. You have to make it more relatable. And for that, you can use context, you can use more examples, you can add use cases. Always use concrete examples. That's what I'm here to tell you. But before that, technical writing has been present in the humans' lives for forever, for ages, eons, actually. You can see here a very raw example. So it's pretty simple, a how-to guide. So spot the herd, get your bow, shoot the animal, and get your food. This is technical writing. People used to write or draw this in the caves thousands and thousands of years ago. So as you can see, documentation has been of major importance since the age of times. And also, this guy, you may know him, Leonardo da Vinci. He was a genius. He's one of my top people I'd like to meet if I had a chance, right at the top of the list with Ryan Gosling. But yeah, the guy was a genius. He was a sculptor, a painter, an astronomer. He also studied anatomy. Whatever. The guy was a genius in all of areas of expertise that you can imagine. But he was not only an inventor and a genius, he also took the time to write about his findings, to write about the things he studied, to document, to make knowledge accessible for everyone. This also helped him, understand his ideas better. So he has journals with over 13,000 descriptions, notes, sketches. He basically wrote down everything. And that is what's most important about documentation. Make knowledgeable, shareable, and understandable. So this means he was also a technical writer. Now, some quick numbers about the importance of documentation. The State of Docs report of this year, which is an organization that studies the documentation industry, this is already available, you can check it online. But it says that 88 of the respondents say that the product's documentation is more important when they're making a purchase. So 80% of the buyers review documentation before actually purchasing a product. And 51% says documentation is essential to closing deals. So take note of this, share this with your sales team, because it shows that documentation is really important in the business side of any kind of product. Now, for the journeys. First of all, when you are preparing documentation, know your audience. Know who they are, what they want, how you can help them. Because audience is pretty broad. You can never know who is on the other side of the screen, who is the person using your product. It can be someone with a lot of years of expertise using your product for 5 years, for 5 minutes. It can be someone who's still a junior, just fresh out of school. It can be someone working as a professional for 30 years. So you really have to know your audience, and it will be pretty diverse for sure. So in our case, X-Ray, our documentation audience is obviously testers, developers, QAs, sometimes designers, and project managers. Documentation pillars. So what are you concerned about when you are writing documentation? You can't scale without documentation. So every time that you need to stop and write a process or about a feature, it just doesn't work. So you have to make sure that you have documentation that allows you to scale whatever it is that you are trying to scale. Also, you have to make sure that your documentation is scalable. You have to make sure that you have processes that are centralized, that are not so human-dependent, and that allow anyone with a need for documentation to be able to proceed on their own. So documentation is effective for scalable and for scaling, and has to be scalable. But what is the most important feature about documentation? It has to be useful. If you have documentation that for some reason is outdated and it's not working, then you might as well not have anything at all. Just even better to have a blank page. So make sure that everything that you put online that is available for the readers is actually helpful, is useful. Otherwise, it's just noise. It won't happen and help anyone. It will just get in the way. So the most important thing about documentation is it has to be useful. Now you have also to worry about content. And we can talk about text content, visual aids, whatever it is, but you have to make sure that the content that you put online is always able to describe an action, to describe a process. And for that, you make sure to have examples, have use cases, make it all about context, all about the person that's reading it, and all about their needs. Instruct always with examples. So now about my journey as a writer. So every time that I have a request, either for a new feature that's part of a release that is coming, or just for a new product, usually they should start with this. They don't do that. They open a ticket on my Jira board and make a request with all the material they need me to work on, and with all the material I need to be able to work. When they don't do it, I have to go ask the PMs about it. So I have to make a discovery, research, which involves talking to a lot of stakeholders, developers, product managers, sometimes designers. So this is like the homework phase. That's where I start. I gather all the information I can about the feature of the product, and then I go from there. Then comes the structure phase. Okay, so how should I structure this page for our readers for this feature? What should be the best approach? And now we have AI. So you are not just writing for people, actual people, humans. You are writing also for AI tools, AI bots. So you have to also consider that. And on the other hand, AI can really be a tool that can help you approach and understand the best structure for the documentation you're about to create. Then I go into the development phase. So I start gathering all the information I have, and I take out my pen, and I start writing it. This is the most important stage of this process. And then it comes time for review. If your case is like mine, I'm the only technical writer at the company, so it's harder for me to get a peer with the technical documentation expertise with the same set of eyes as me to review the documentation. So I usually have to ask a colleague, usually a PM, to review, to make sure that the documentation I just wrote is actually describing the feature that has been developed. Because like I said, it has to be useful. If you are writing something that is vague or is not wrong or is not describing what the feature does, it's not worth it. So don't do it. So it's very important to be able to have someone to review your documentation, an extra set of eyes that will give you a fresh look, and to make sure that everything is right and is useful before it goes live. Then, publishing time, it goes live, and anyone is able to check the documentation. In our case, I'm talking about public documentation, so you don't even have to be a registered customer. It's available for anyone. So if there's anything to change, you should do it, because anyone will be able to check the documentation. Then the job never ends. It will require updating. It will require maintenance. And for that, you have to be in constant touch with the product team to make sure that if there were any changes, they are documented. Because if you have a feature that is not documented, then you don't have a feature or a product. So you have to make sure all the time that everything that you have live is reflecting whatever is going on with your product. And this can be hard because you have to keep following up with the PMs and make sure that they tell you whatever is going on regarding development, because if there are any changes, it's likely they'll forget to tell you. So you have to be on the lookout for that. Now, a close-up to a page. Let's think about page journey. What do I start? So please take this as a suggestion. There are no rules in technical writing. Do what's best for you. But in the case of our documentation, because we have guidelines and style guides, we have to follow to ensure consistency. I created this template where I start always with an overview, an introduction, where I explain what that feature will do and how it will help the user. Then I start to break down the concept. I explain how it works. I write the operations. Usually I use steps for this and screenshots, providing examples with actual screenshots and with elements connecting the screenshots to the text instructions. And then I provide actionable insights. In this case, it's all about publishing information regarding related pages, or usually I have a footnote with a link to our support system. If in case anyone is not happy with the instructions provided, they get a link at the end of the page with support troubleshooting, where they can easily open a ticket with our support team and ask more information about that page in case if it wasn't clear for them. So, what challenges do I face while I'm doing this? I already mentioned some of them, but the main problem that some of our readers mention is documentation is overly technical. it's too technical, it's not relatable, it's narrow, it doesn't have a soul. You just read it, and if you're not a technical person, because like I said, you can't know for sure the level of expertise of the person that will be reading the content you provide. So if it's too technical, it won't be helpful. On the other hand, it will get in the way of someone trying to do their job, and it will harm them, and it will make them open a ticket to support, and support has to help them, and that's not good. If you have good documentation, you'll have less support tickets. So make sure that your documentation is not over technical. Try to simplify it, try to put yourself in the reader's shoes, and try to use more examples, more concrete information, more use cases. So just don't just worry about how you can use the feature. You can click this, you can click here, there, or there, but why? What's the actual benefit for the user to use that feature? What's the benefit? How will that improve their tasks? So also, remember, how is important, but also focus on the why. Make it relatable. And you can do that by adding examples. Another challenge, like I was mentioning, is having documentation up to date. Because I'm not a technical person, I go to the dailies, I go to the sprint reviews, but in the end of the day, I don't have that level of expertise that allows me to understand easily if the new development they made will actually be necessary to be added to the documentation page. So be on the lookout for that. If there are developments, even you suspect that something is different, even if it's just a button that switch a side or a place on the UI of the product or on the feature, be sure to update its respective page. Otherwise, it will be outdated and it will cause more harm than good. So it has always to be up to date. Otherwise, it won't be useful. And why does this happen? Why do I have to pursue the PMs and everyone about documentation? Because they don't really care about documentation. Documentation, as I say, is the most neglected branch in software engineering, and folks, usually developers, they hate writing documentation. They love writing code, that's what they do, and it makes sense, that's their job. But when it's time for them to actually write documentation about the code, they neglect it, they don't like to do it. PMs are the same. It's a boring task for them. So you have to evangelize, you have to make others understand the importance of documentation. You have to help them help you, because overall, you'll be also helping the company. So on top of all of this, you have to just try and make others care about documentation. And with this comes another problem, communication. How do you get the information and the updates that you need to make sure that the documentation is useful and up to date? Just try to become best friends with the product team. Otherwise, it's likely they'll forget about you, and you just become a hurdle and an extra layer on their tasks. So be sure to be close to them, get along with them, be a friend, make them understand that you are there just to help, and that you're not just another step on their processes. Now, what are some of the solutions for these challenges? Like I said, always make documentation relatable. Put yourself on the reader's shoes. You just don't want some narrow and tasteless documentation. You want something for you. You want something relatable that you can identify with, that can make sense for you, can help you achieve your goal or your task on that day. So for that, use concrete examples. Here we have an example from an X-ray documentation page about associating test executions with a test plan. As you can see, the highlight segment. First, of course, we explain what it does, but then what's the benefit? How does it help the user? Because it improves organization, ensuring all relevant tests are accounted for, and enhances analysis by providing a clear view of the test status across multiple executions. This leads to better management and control of the testing processes. You see, just 2 lines, and briefly, you explain to the person whether she should be keep reading the page or not, because it states right away what would be the benefit of using this feature. Also, another example, this time for an AI feature, AI test case generation. Again, start right away in the introduction. explain what the feature does, but be sure to explain clearly the benefits. In this case, it's longer, but it's worth it. Make it always relatable. Now, we have a section that you won't find on most documentation portals, which is called TTT, Tips, Tricks, and Tutorials. It's all about demystifying technicalities. It's a set of pages. We have hundreds, it's super big, but it's a set of documentation that is intended for you to write as if you're writing to a friend. It's not technical at all. It's really by putting yourself on the reader's shoes and explaining the feature of the product as if you were explaining it to a friend. No formalities, just being close to the reader and explaining things without using, complex and boring jargon. Being simple, being close to the reader. Now, some examples of what you should do and you should not do regarding documentation. So, like I said, you never know who will be reading your documentation, your instructions. It can be someone using your product for 5 years or someone just using the product for 5 minutes. Could be a junior engineer or an engineer with over 30 years of experience, so never assume. So for that, you should never understand that they know the purpose of the page that they just found, because you don't know how they got there. So, for instance, don't just say, use subtest execution that allows you to manage tests. This doesn't have context. It doesn't explain the benefit to the user. So, always explain what the feature does and how they will benefit the user. So, in this case, you should say that creating a subtest execution as a subtest cover requirement allows you to track test progress directly in the Agile world. So, the benefit is clear, is stated right away. Always use clear, concrete examples. Like I said earlier, don't make your documentation soulless, tasteless. Give examples. Be concrete. Go straight to the point. So if by some case you are using abstract terms without examples, avoid saying test for different user inputs. But what are these inputs? If it's a password, then say it's a password. If it's a username, then say it's a username. Always call things by their names. Always be concrete and clear about what you are mentioning. Also, a thing that helps me, because not everyone learns or processes information the same way. And again, you won't know what type of reader you are dealing with. So always try to balance your documentation with visual aids. Don't always just rely on text. So if you can, provide visual aids and detailed steps. Don't just list features and don't just have pages with text. I will share an example. So here you can see I'm detailing an operation with the first step, and then I have a screenshot with a description, that's figure 1, and then we have the elements on the screenshot that will allow you connect the information from the text to the screenshot. So this has been very helpful for us since we have been using this method. I mean, it also has a maintenance problem, because every time, especially because we are embedded in the Jira system, every time Jira changes the UI, I have to go back and change all the screenshots because they are not true anymore. So it has that downside. It will make you have more worries. It will make you have an extra effort, but I think in the long run, it's worth it. Now, some examples of the technical writer role. So if you are writing documentation, it's likely that you will have a silent success thing going on for you, because you'll be an unsung hero. If the documentation is useful and if it's serving its purpose, it will go unnoticed. No one will tell you how grateful they are to follow your documentation because they were able to achieve their goal, and that's what's important, and it ends there. On the other hand, if your documentation is bad and if it's not useful, everyone will complain. You will know it right away. So if things go well, no one will tell you. If they go to hell, they will tell you for sure. So yeah, if just a link is broken or if a comma is out of place, all hell will break loose. People will complain. But if it's good, everyone will be silent. So yeah, prepare to be an unsung hero, because it's likely that you'll receive awful feedback and not constructive if things go south. But if it's going well, no one will tell you about it, most likely. And yeah, I don't know if you are into quantum physics, but you know the Schrodinger's cat, and it applies here, because it's like the Schrodinger's documentation paradox. If there is documentation, no one will bother to read it, because it's boring, and you know, who cares about instructions? But if there is no documentation, then everyone will complain about the fact there is no documentation. So yeah, it can be tough. I like to compare this with a theater example. If you go to see a play or a movie, you won't ever think about the work of the designers, of the makeup artists, of the sound engineerings, because things will just be there. You just sing a play, you see the actors, and that's all. And if it goes well, you won't even be thinking about all the stakeholders that were involved about making the play work. So it's the same with us. If you write documentation and good documentation, and the product will work well, and the customers are able to use it to its fullest, anyone won't even remember, oh, this was easy for me to understand because I followed a good documentation page and it helped me. No one will think about that. So it's pretty much the same. And if you like football, this is the Mestalla Stadium from here, from Valencia. It's pretty much also compared to the referees. You know, if you are watching a football match, you go there to see the show. You know, you want to see players score goals, you want to see good football, you want to see a spectacle. But if by some reason the referee is not helping the show, I mean, especially if they are benefit the other team, not yours, that can be tough. But on the other hand, if the referee does a good job, you won't notice the referee is there. He's not constantly blowing the whistle, the game is flowing as it should, you will just focus on the game. And that's what you want. That's the same. If you have good documentation, if your product is working well for the customers, no one will ever think about how good the documentation was, because it just works, and that's what's most important. So, what do I think about documentation and how to better manage it? I think that knowledge must be shared. The same thing that Da Vinci thought. I mean, we have this in common. Maybe we are both geniuses. But the thing is, doesn't matter how good your product is, doesn't matter how good your inventions are. If the documentation doesn't explain how it works, how can you pass on that knowledge? How can you explain it to everyone in a scalable way? So you have to document everything. You have to make sure that you have a centralized place where anyone can go at any time and understand and see with examples, relatable, how things work. Because otherwise, if knowledge isn't meant to be shared and can't be shared, it's just no good. So, and you have no reason to make your documentation less technical and more relatable. Just put yourself on the reader's shoes. Just try to use more examples. Don't be too technical. Just go for it. Think, okay, if I were someone using my product, what kind of problems would I expect them to solve? So go from there. Focus on the why behind the how. It can be relatable. It's not that difficult. So I think that documentation and testing are all about asking questions and providing answers to those questions. Otherwise, it won't be useful. And you have to make sure that the answers are there all the time and that everything is up to date. So I think that documentation is always about telling stories. And telling stories, it's a process from the dawn of times that helps people feel understood and helps them understand each other. So the same thing happens here. It's all about telling stories, providing examples. This will help you create a better relationship with your customer and help them use your product in a better way. And yeah, be prepared if you are writing documentation to be an unsung hero, because it's a support role, it's essential, but it's unseen. So don't expect a pat on the back or even a big bonus at the end of the day. If you do a good job, if people are quiet and silent about it, then it's a good sign. It's a green flag, not a red one. And it's likely that your success will go unnoticed. That's the sign. That means that you are actually doing a very good job. And I think we have some time for Q&A now. So like I said, I'm not an expert, so don't make difficult questions. Save those for yourself, just see the easy ones. No, I'm joking. Bring it all. Thank you so much.
Any up here?
Okay. Nick, ты говоришь, in terms of using AI, do you use it, for example, to ease your documentation update process? So, for example, you can go through Git diff, or through release changes, or through any other code changes that have been happening, so that AI would help you to generate updates for your docs.
Yeah. That's a good idea, a good approach if you use the docs as code method. We don't use it in our company. So mostly I use AI to help me with my daily tasks, mostly as an editorial assistant, and to help me sometimes find the better approach to face the blank page. So it means that I became also an expert in prompt for helping me write. So it's mostly I use AI as an assistant for my editorial tasks. Also to help me know for sure, not for sure, but to help me understand if I'm writing documentation not only readable by humans but also by AI bots. It has been very helpful for me. It's like an extra hand, because I believe that you have two ways to better use AI. Right now, most of the companies are using it to reduce headcount and to make cuts. But on the other hand, you can use it as an extra hand to make your roadmap more robust. You don't have to fire people, just keep the people you have, and you will be able to achieve more. I believe in this. That's why I use it as an editorial assistant to help me achieve more without having less people with me. But yeah, that's a good solution for use if you have the docs as code process. We don't. But if I did, I would do what you mentioned. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Focusing more on code for developers, don't you think that making code more maintainable, more with comments, is more maintainable and is better for if like a junior engineer comes into the company than actually having technical documentation just for like the code?
Yeah, that comes on the part that I mentioned, that I have to make others care about documentation. Sometimes they don't even care enough, so they think about that and think that they can help them in the long run. I think that universities and mentors should instruct their juniors better in that sense, especially now with AI, because you can also have AI to help you do that. But yeah, it's also a good idea. Thank you.
Hello. You said that you are the only one basically writing the documentation and nobody wants to do it. You cannot measure success. You're not promoted. So what keeps you motivated in your job?
You'll get me fired.
No.
I'm motivated precisely because of that. Because if I don't do it, who else is going to do it?
Do you think you should have some technical knowledge about the product, on the technical aspect, to write the documentation, or just the product base?
It would help for sure if I had a background in engineering, but what I do usually is when I'm writing about a feature or a product, I become a Q&A, because I test the feature myself before writing it to make sure that it does whatever it is they claim it's doing, and also for me to be able to get the screenshots I want for the instructions I plan to write. But yeah, if you are a technical writer, for sure it's a plus that you have a technical or background from engineering. If not, it's pretty doable, but yeah, it would be a plus for sure.
Which tools do you use for your technical documentation? Which tools?
For our back office, we use Confluence because we are a Jira add-on, and Confluence is also an Atlassian and a Jira product. So we use Confluence to publish, to host and to publish our pages.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you think about documentation as code? For example, on Torah and stuff like that?
I think it's a good, in our case, it's not easy to do it because we outsource our developers, so we don't have in-house developers. I think it's a good approach when you have a lot of developers writing code for your own product, which in our case, that adds an extra layer of work. But if you have a team of technical writers and a big team of developers, I think it's one of the best approaches because also you can automate it. You can use AI to enhance it and to make it easier. And you eliminate certain layers. Like I said, the thing I have to always be after them asking what is changed and what is not. It can really help eliminate that communication part from the process. So I think it's a good approach. But like I said, depends on what your company does and the resources you have there.
Okay.
Okay, congratulations on your presentation, first
Thank
of all.
you.
And I have a question about the percentage of effort that would be considered too little or maybe too much to invest on documentation for a project. That's one question. And so what is the amount that you believe is rational to amount for it? And the second question is how early on the software development lifecycle do you get in order to prepare the documentation?
Okay, I'll start with the last part. Thank you for your question. I try to start as early as I can. Unfortunately, in our case, the documentation is not part of the definition of done. I think it should be. That's the main thing for me. But since it's not, I start right away. As soon as I have the designer with the Figma mockups for the feature, I start right away. Because the sooner the better. Because it's likely that in the meantime things will change, and by that time I already have something written, so if something will change, I already thought about the structure, I can easily change it, because it will just be an update, usually on the UX or the UI, so I have already things drafted and written, and if by some time they decide, okay, so we have to release this earlier, that buys me time. So as soon as you can, get involved. Ask the developers for their notes, ask the PMs, but as soon as I have the mockups from the designers, I try to start right away. And the first part you were mentioning about the, sorry.
Percentage of effort that would be considered normally okay for the percentage of effort amounted for, well, counting the cost of a new feature that is considered okay purely for documentation.
I think you should put not all the effort there, but most of the effort there, because, like I said, it's preventive. If you write good documentation, useful documentation, you will save tons of support tickets later on of people saying, this doesn't work, how do I do this, how should I get that, etc., etc. So I think that having useful and good documentation, most of all, is a preventive solution. It will save you a ton of crises later on, especially with the support team. So that's a way you can measure your success. When you start having good documentation, consistent, up to date, and useful for the customers, it's super likely that you'll see a huge decrease of support tickets. So put all the effort you can in documentation, start as early as you can, because it will likely save you a lot of headaches later on in the long run. Thank you.
I think we are at time. I, of course, encourage you to find Anna if you have any other follow-up questions throughout the conference. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna.